Well, being able to maximize the amount of power you have in a smaller space is certainly something that is important, I know, to me and to other RVers. And as we make this transition to lithium batteries, we're seeing a lot of different form factors, different shapes and sizes of batteries from our traditional kind of car battery looking battery. And that's a good thing because we have some unique requirements as RVers to try to squeeze these things into small spaces. This one's particularly interesting because this is a 12-volt battery that has a rated capacity of 460 amp hours. So it's a pretty big battery, but it's not big and bulky necessarily. So is having one large battery dropped into your RV better than building a battery bank of multiple batteries? There's certainly some pros and cons that we can explore here as we take a closer look at this, this big battery here and see if it delivers on what it promises. Oh, there it goes. So the battery shut down. So from the outside, the build quality on this looks really, really good. This is a very solid steel enclosure, and the handles here really make a big difference. I'm not going to lift it, it's wrong angle. So if you look at the top here, it's got a humidity gauge and a temperature gauge here on the top. So I'm not sure how much I'll use that, but it's there. We can remove the top and we can remove the front panel. Now it's got a nice little plaque here on the front that's aluminum that has all your battery specs on it, and it's also got a power button here, so you don't have to necessarily wire up a separate cutoff switch. You can just turn on the button here, which activates the BMS, and when it's lit up blue like that, you know that it's on. Now, the terminals come with these nice heavy-duty plastic covers on here that'll screw on, and these are M8 sized terminals, and they also have these lock nuts on here, so as we twist them down, they lock in place pretty well and they won't shake loose. So you can connect these either from the front or from the side. It's up to you. One thing that's interesting here is that it has these little vent holes. There's one over here and there's one on the other side here. Probably to vent any heat that may be generated from the BMS. So that's something I haven't seen in other batteries. But what that means is that it's not completely sealed up from the elements. So you want to make sure that that wherever you install this, it's going to be in an area that's pretty much in a controlled environment, that you're not going to get anything in here that you don't want. All right, yeah, we got our BMS back here, and yeah, we got some monitoring wires here for our voltage, and we got our main negative and positive going out to our battery terminals here, and you can see they're coated in this like fire heat retardant sleeve here, so that's nice to see. All right, you can see here taped to the bottom we've got looks like one of the temperature sensors. The others will be inside, probably in where the battery cells are, and this must be our Bluetooth module down here. Yeah, you can see the markings on all the power connections here to indicate that they're probably torqued down and double checked, and something we can take a look at periodically to make sure nothing's coming loose. All right, so if you're wondering how we're going to get 460 amp hours at 12 volts out of this battery, I drew this little diagram to show you. So inside there are 8 lithium iron phosphate cells. Now each one of these cells is rated at 230 amp hours, and it puts out about 3.4 volts. So that's one cell. Now these are set up in what's called a 2P4S configuration. So we've got 2 of these in parallel, and all 4 of these logical pairs are all connected then in series. Each 2 of these cells we have in parallel. We got the positives and the negatives connected together, all 4 of them. And then what we'll do is we'll connect, say, the positive to the negative. We're putting these in series now, and then the positive here goes to the negative there, and then the positive here might go to the negative there. So now we have these in series, and then if we were to take our output here and our output here, we've got our positive side and our negative side. That's kind of messy. This should give us our 12 volts. Now with all 4 of these pairs in series, we add all the voltages together. So that's 3.4 volts times 4 equals about 13.6 volts. So that's the output of our battery here if we were to measure across our 2 terminal posts. It's pretty snug on here. Okay, here it comes. Just going to open this carefully. We can kind of see how these cells are connected. Oh, well, looks like there's some foam here, and this nice little sheet here is actually protecting all of the connections. So let's see if I can remove that. There's just 4 little Phillips screws. A little trick here, put a little magnet on your screwdriver, and it kind of magnetizes that screwdriver. Okay, see? Screw is stuck there. So that's 1. Okay, now I can remove this little protective layer, and we can see our cells. They have this nice little bracket here holding them down. And yeah, we've got 8. We got 4 pairs. 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like the negative is attached to this side here. So you can see that the negative and positive side, so the positive connects to the negative of the next pair, and the positive connects to the negative of the other pair, and then the positive goes to the negative of this side, and then this side is the positive output going to the terminal block. So that gives us our 460 amp hours, and we can see these little white cables here that are fastened down there pretty well, and yeah, sealed up pretty nice. That's our balance cable, so that's the BMS is gonna use those to keep all the cells balanced. So yeah, that's what it looks like on the inside. I'm not gonna do a tear down here, but you get the general idea. All right, one more thing that I just noticed is that this humidity and temperature gauge here at the top isn't connected to anything, so it's taking its readings right off of the back of the unit here, underneath here, so there's no wires or anything connected to it. So I would think it would be connected to one of the temperature sensors or something, but it's just reading the those values from just inside the lid here, so just inside the case. All right, we got it all put back together. Let's turn it on, make sure everything works. We'll check the voltage. So there, it's on. I'm going to take my multimeter here, set it to DC voltage, which has got the V with the straight lines on it. And we should get 13 volts or so. So just put the positive on the red and then that black. So 13.15 volts is what we're reading here. Now you could easily arrange these next to each other if you want to just expand your battery bank out and make your battery connections in parallel, I suppose, if you wanted to keep it at a 12 volt system. But if you're building a 24 volt system or even a 48 volt system, you could connect these in series to achieve that voltage. Now the BMS that's inside this battery is a 250 amp BMS. So what that means is it has a maximum discharge current of 250 amps. So that's the maximum that it'll allow coming out of the battery. So that's also how we want to size our cabling and our inverter that we're going to connect to it. So the appropriately sized cable for that would be like a 1/0 cable. So here's a 1/0 AWG cable here. This battery has a maximum output of 3,200 watts. So we want to use a 3,000 watt inverter to allow you to maximize that power coming from the battery. Well, that's a lot to say about a battery. Remember back in the day, you just go buy a battery and you connect it and you're like, woohoo, it works. Let's move on and actually hook this thing up and test it to see how it works. Now, when we do that, I'm going to want to be able to monitor stuff that's going on inside the battery. And what I'm going to do is connect to the BMS that's in the battery here. And the nice thing about lithium batteries is that, the BMS, the battery management system, it's a little computer that has sensors and stuff connected to it. So it's constantly monitoring the condition of the cells and everything that's going on inside the battery to keep it healthy and report that information out. So it's really nice to be able to have access to all that information that the BMS is tracking. So the app that comes with the battery, well, you got to download it, but it's Bluetooth enabled. So we connect to the battery via that, and that's what I'm going to do here. I got it set up already on this tablet, and we'll be able to take a look at things like the state of charge that the BMS is tracking. You also want to install a battery monitoring system like a Victron Smart Shunt, or like this one. This is a Renogy battery monitoring system. Now you want something that has a shunt. It's like this little guy here, this little device, and that measures energy moving across it, so it keeps track of how much is coming in and going out, kind of like a fuel gauge for your battery. And that's how you're going to monitor your consumption and your usage and your state of charge all the time in your RV. And it's going to give you a pretty accurate reading of where you're at. Now on the positive side, I've got a switch here. This is just a disconnect switch. Right now it's in the off position. So it's just kind of resembling something you might wire up, but you'd probably mount this on a wall or something and make it look nice. And on the negative side is where I have my Victron Smart Shunt. I'm going to use this to measure our total discharge when we do a discharge test. But we'll show it side by side here with the app for the battery together with the Victron shunt. We'll be able to see the data that it's logging. But this is the shunt here. You can see that anything flowing through here is going to be measured across these 2 points, and it's going to measure the resistance and calculate how much energy is moving back and forth. And there's this wire here that's actually connected to the positive side that's going to give us a reading of the voltage. I will point out that this cable here is not 1/0 cable. It is it's number 2 cable, which is, I don't know, about half that size. And it's adequate though for this test, but we will probably see this warm up more so than the 1/0 cable that I have here on the battery side. So we'll check the temperature on those things when we actually test it. It's interesting to see it. And you can see the difference in size between the 1/0 cable and the number 2 cable here. Okay, so now we got our inverter connected. Turn on our battery disconnect switch to the on position. Okay, I've got both of the apps running now. This is the Victron Connect app, which is connected to the Victron Shunt. And this is the BMS app that came with this battery. So we can see it's showing a state of charge of 33%. I've gone ahead and synchronized them as best I could. And yeah, we can see some total voltage. Current right now it's drawing just 3 amps, just 2 to 3 amps. The inverter is actually on right now. It's just doesn't have anything plugged into it. And yeah, we got some average voltages for the cells at 3.2, and our readings here for our temperature sensors. And down here we have 4 different voltage readings, and these are our 4 pairs of battery cells. You know, we've got, you know, 2 and 2 and 2 and 2. So they're pretty well balanced at 3.28, 3.28, 3.28. So the first thing we'll do is we'll go ahead and test the 250 amp output of the BMS. So it should shut down or disconnect power once we hit that 250 amp rating. I've got a little space heater here, so I can turn that up to, you can see it bumping up here. It's pulling 150 amps right now, 150 amps, 140, and it's getting warm. Now I'm going to go ahead and add my heat gun, which has a variable power level adjustment here, so I'll be able to just turn it up and see if we can get close to that 250 mark. $218, $217. Turn this up slowly. $260. So we're already over. So it's pulling 260, almost 270. Oh, there it goes. So the battery shut down. I can see the power light is out, but we'll see what happens. Oh, it just came back on again. All right. All right, well, it was able to pull over 250 amps for a few seconds. It took about 10-15 seconds for it to actually finally disconnect. And it was at about 275 amps when it did. And after about 30 seconds or so, the BMS reset itself, and then it came back alive again. So that's good. What I'll do now is actually do a full discharge on the battery. We'll try to bring it down as close to 0 as possible, and then we'll recharge it again all the way up to full, so we can do a full discharge test and see if we actually get 460 amp hours out of the battery. Now, while I'm doing this discharge and trying to draw the batteries down, let me show you the difference that the cable size makes with my little thermal camera here. 113, 115 degrees Fahrenheit. Now let's take a look at the 1/0 cable. All right, about 85 to 89 degrees on this 1/0 cable here. Neither of them are at unsafe levels right now, but yeah, cable thickness does make a difference. Now it says here in the manual that the low voltage disconnect is 10.8, so I'm expecting it to basically drop off once it gets to 10.8 volts. Luckily, I looked up what the low voltage cutoff is here on the inverter, and it's lower than 10.8. So it's like 10.5 or 10.0 volts depending upon what you have it set to. So hopefully the battery or the BMS will cut out before the inverter does. All right, well, now that the battery says it's fully discharged, it probably has a tiny bit in there. I'm hoping the BMS will come back to life when I put a little bit of charge to it. So I have it dialed down right here. My inverter is also a charger, so I'm going to go ahead and plug it into AC power, and we'll see if I get some current flowing into the battery. Okay, it's taken it. So I reset the state of charge on both of these monitors and my history here. So what I want to do here is track my cumulative amp hour drawn. There you go, 6 hours. Let's let that sit for a while and see what happens. So according to the Victron Connect app, we should be hitting full capacity soon, and we've got a remaining 4.7 amp hours here. If we look at the onboard BMS readings, it's showing us some different information. It keeps saying 95%, and the estimated charge time keeps restarting. It's like 30 seconds. It's gone over and over and over 30 seconds. So I don't think it really knows. I don't know if the calculations are that accurate. All right, so we have hit 100% here, and we've hit the 0 amp hours, which means we've put 460 amp hours back in, and we are starting to see the voltage climb as the current is starting to drop. It was at 82 amps just a short time ago, and now it's at 66, so it's going to start dropping, and once it gets down to just a couple of amps and the voltage climbs up to 14.6, then we know that it's at full charge. So we can see in the chart here in the manual, kind of represents what I just explained. So the green line here is our voltage. The voltage starts to rise, and then right here at the end, it starts to spike up to the target voltage. And at the same time, that straight line here, which is like a constant current at 14.5 or so, when that voltage is spiking, it drops all the way down to almost 0. The battery cells are pretty much charged up. They're at almost 3.6, 3.58. This one's low. Once it's fully charged, we'll just let it sit for a while, and these should all balance themselves out. And I'm going to just call this fully charged. Yeah, we'll let it sit. We'll let the cells equalize a little bit, and then we can start capacity test and just start doing a full discharge again and get all the way back down to 0. All right, well, the capacity test just wrapped up, and according to the Victron shunt here, it pulled 472, almost 473 amp hours out of this battery until the battery hit its low voltage cutoff. And it's showing 0% on both apps. So yeah, that's in excess of what its rated capacity is, which is great for a battery that's, got this much capacity, plus the low temperature cutoff, and Bluetooth, and all of these nice features to have in a lithium battery. And for a battery that's running just over $1,000, that's pretty impressive. You can see here on Amazon, the normal price is $13.99, but they usually have it discounted. Right now it's down to $11.99, and they've also given me a coupon code that you can enter at checkout for an additional 7% on top of that. Pretty impressive price for a battery of these with these specs. I remember when I first did our upgrade on our other motorhome, I had 4 lithium batteries, for a 400 amp hour lithium battery bank, and it, plus all the cabling and all the other stuff I put into it, it was over $4,000 to do that upgrade. The original install that I did with those expensive batteries, they're still performing well, and I've never been dissatisfied with them, but yeah, it was pretty expensive compared to what we can get now. To be able to get something like this in one drop-in battery for just over $1,000, it's kind of mind-boggling. I would probably go with 2 of these if you can fit it in there. Now, going back to the whole question of whether or not it's better to have one large battery like this over multiple small batteries, I mean, it's going to be subjective, but to be quite honest, we haven't really had that option until recently to have these big 12-volt batteries like this. I will say that it certainly simplifies your installation considerably to just have one drop-in battery that you just connect your positive and negative battery terminals to, and then connect it to your inverter and the rest of your system. You know, installing multiple batteries in a battery bank, you know, it's not uncommon to see 4, 6, 8, even 10, you know, individual 100 amp hour batteries making up a battery bank. And just the complexity involved in having all of those cables and making all of those cables and connecting all that stuff and making sure that those connections stay secure, and you know, you don't have to there's just a lot to it. I'm curious to hear from you. You know, what do you think about this battery, and is this something that you would use in your setup, and how would you use it? Let me know in the comments. And I will also put a link to the battery where you can get it on Amazon, as well as the code that they gave me so you can get that additional discount. I'll put it in the comment, I'll tag a comment, and also put it in the video description. So go check that out. But I want to thank you for sticking with me in this video and watching, and I also want to give a shout out to VATRER for providing the battery for review. It's really cool of them to do that. But take it easy, and I will see you in the next one.